fast forwarded this presentation to this moment, section 4. This is where we begin. So you want to get started practicing immediately. Amanda, would you explain the law of diminishing intent for a second?
Yeah, so the law of diminishing intent talks about how the longer, the more amount of time it is between when you take your course to when you actually start getting going, the less likely you are to actually get launched and have a successful business. And so, and a lot of people too, I think in addition to the intent aspect of it, people can get a little scared. I know for me, I had an accountability partner that is one of my best friends now, and she just kept telling me, you better get going now, and you start self out of it, because we are all scared, I mean, microblading is kind of scary starting out. I think we can all agree. And so starting right away is I attribute 90% of my success to the fact that I started instantly instead of waiting, which for me, I had to have that accountability buddy to push me to do that. It was definitely out of my comfort zone for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So super important. Get started immediately. Set goals. Write down a description of where you are at the 6-month point. This is a great place to start. So I would suggest to you to write it in present tense, not in the future. I would write it as if I am Amanda. I'm 6 months into my microblading journey. I already have, 2 clients per week. I'm filling up my or whatever it is for you, three microblading clients every single week. I have referrals coming in. This quantity, make it measurable. I have 3 referrals coming in every single week. I'm on my way to booking out my schedule. Just be very descriptive, but say it, state it, declare it. My fears, I separated from this career that I didn't like or wasn't fulfilled by. I'm on my way to building a successful business. I feel so empowered. Like, add all of that color and emotion into it, because when you read this each day, it's going to help you stay in contact with your reason why you're doing this and what you're aiming for. And then once you have that vision, then it's simply a matter of what do we need to do to get there. And so what you're going to do next is you're going to consider what we review in section 4, this section right here, and section 5, the next section, which will be the subsequent 3 months. So the total of months 1 through 6, you're going to review what we cover in these sections, and you're going to set goals, smaller goals, within this time frame that will get you to that vision that you have at the 6-month point. Okay, smaller goals within this time frame that will get you to that vision that you have at the 6-month point. Okay, so you're going to break your goals down into monthly and weekly smaller goals. These are the SMART goals that we talked about a little bit earlier. The goals need to be measurable. It's really, really important. That's what the M stands for. They've got to be measurable. Don't just say, I'm going to, I'm going to work on my marketing. Make it measurable, very specific goals. Like, I will have my Facebook business page set up by this date. I will have 5 reviews on my Facebook business page by this date. I will have 5 reviews on my Yelp page by this date. I will have my email set up that reflects the brand name of my company by this date. Okay, so those goals, these are things that you need to do that coincide with achieving the vision that you have, but you can break them down into smaller goals. Amanda, any thoughts on that? Products, tools, and equipment. These are things that you can get started with, and you can write a list of what they all are. Again, this is a good spot to add a checklist like Amanda was describing. Amanda, can you just briefly mention some of the things? Again, this is a good spot to add a checklist like Amanda was describing. Amanda, can you just briefly mention some of the things that you had on your list when you created this?
Yeah, for products, tools, and equipment, a massage table or some kind of bed, barrier film, a glam clear light, anesthetic, green soap, all the blades and pigments, compass. There's so many things,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, list goes on. And then consent forms, aftercare forms, aftercare skin candy or whatever you're using for your aftercare, all that stuff.
Yes. Now, if there's a few different ways, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, a few different ways that you can set yourself up as far as where you'll actually be seeing clients. But in certain circumstances, I would imagine perhaps some of the things that you would need to see clients are already covered depending on your circumstances. And in some cases, it's not. So in other words, if you're going to open up your own location, your own salon, you're literally starting from scratch. You need beds, furniture, I mean, the works, right? However, if you're going to be subleasing from a salon, and maybe you've achieved a situation like Amanda did when she started, where she was literally, I think you were working only 1 day a week or two?
2 days a week starting out.
Okay, so 2 days a week. Was that location equipped in any way, or was it an empty room?
No, it was totally furnished, decorated. Everything was already, even the bed was already there. I just brought my tools and my glam core, and that was it. It was seriously so simple, and they just had to put my name in a sticker on the window for the studio that I was in. It was a very simple process, very cost effective.
Okay, so very good. So that's a great example of how to get yourself started quickly, right? If you're not already, you're not already in the beauty industry with a studio, and or you're not already working in a salon or something like this, and you need to jump into something, that's a great way to do it. And in which case, the products, tools, and equipment that you need, would you have to consider what you're going to get with the location that you secure. So naturally, you need to look into a location. So we'll talk about that in a few moments. So in months 1 through 3, just keep in mind, you'll see we use the word begin the process, or the words begin the process, in a few different places. And that's because some of these things are a process. It might take you a couple of weeks to complete the process, but at least get this process started so that as you come into months 4, 5, and 6, you can be completing that process. Because our goal is that by the end of 6 months, you've totally completed all these things. You're licensed, you've got your location, you've got your marketing set up, you've got your all the different pieces that you need to actually perform the treatment, to receive clients, and so on, and fulfill this service. So if you're not already licensed, get started ASAP. You need to get a state tattoo artist license, which in some states is also called a permanent cosmetics license. It might go by a different name, but that's basically what it is a state tattoo artist license. You may need an establishment license depending on your setup, where you're going to be practicing. And there may be even some requirements at the county level. So you're going to want to look into your state health department, contact them, find out what the requirements would be in order to perform this service. Amanda?
Also, getting your bloodborne pathogen certificate is going to be a big deal too, and understanding really good sanitation practices and understanding BVP really well.
Yes. And so probably the best place to go to, would you agree, is their state health department, to either literally a Google search on this subject matter, or going to their state health department would lead them to the resources that would answer those questions?
Yep. And obviously it does, like you said, it varies a lot based on the state that you live in, even down to the things in your salon, little weird setup things that can vary a lot state by state. So requirements, like I know where I'm at in Washington, you have to have a separate entrance and a separate everything within your home, and there's just weird little things. So just make sure you read that. It would just be a bummer for somebody to sign some kind of lease or sublease not knowing that it's not compliant with the state regulations or even county regulations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about the different options that they have. So Amanda had a great solution. She subleased from, what was it, a salon?
Yeah, a lash extension salon.
Okay. And so that allowed her to sublease for a very short period of time each week, because this particular room where she was operating out of was available 2 days a week. So that enabled her to not have to make a full commitment to a 7-day-a-week or full month-to-month lease, which kept her costs lower and allowed her to get to profitability faster. I think what it also does, Amanda, and I'd like to hear your comments on this, it allowed you to compress your schedule, and it almost creates a bit of urgency on the part of your customer, that if they do want to book with you, that there's some scarcity there as far as your availability, right? you're only available in these times. And so that allows your time to fill up faster, which creates the urgency for them to book with you, which helps sort of that compounding effect and accelerate the whole process, which then resulted in you adding days. Would you agree with that?
That's so true. Yeah. Starting out, because I mean, I can't see 5 clients a day with microblading, and so depending on how many first appointments or touch-ups, 2 days a week, and then I expanded into 3 days a week. It ramped up quick, and it did book up quick starting out.
Mm-hmm.
And when people go onto your online booking system and they see that you have 5 spots available in the next week, it doesn't look as good as if you are 1, 2, 3 months booked out, and it creates a demand. It creates a
Yeah.
pull. People want to be booked with somebody that's fully booked. In the salon industry, we all know that that's the truth. My hairstylist is booked out 6 to 8 months in advance. So I have my hair appointments booked for 2 years,
Wow.
because she's the best. But that's how it is, and she really is booked out that far. And so, yeah, I think it's important to. I would encourage people to sublease starting out, just because you're able to ramp up. And so as you do become more booked, like I became fully booked with those 2 days a week, so I went to 3 days a week, and I've been fully booked at 3 days a week, so I'm going full time at the salon now. So my lash girl is actually moving, and so I'm taking over 7 days a week at the salon.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a process over months, and I think that was not only the most cost-effective way, but like you said, it does create that demand, and that has been a brand that has really. I feel like that's part of my salon now is people know I'm booked out. And when my clients tell their friends about it, they're like, well, yeah, well, if you want to get it done, you better book it because she's booked 2, 3 months in advance. That's what my
Mm-hmm.
clients tell their friends. And so
Right.
they always book right away.
Yes, and let me mention something about that because that's really interesting. Um, because if you're only available 2 days a week and you're booked out 3 months, that's different than having a totally open schedule and now the same quantity of clients you're booked out for a week or two. It from a perception standpoint, that's very powerful. Good stuff, Amanda. Thanks. So you can also sublease a salon suite. That's a very popular solution these days, right? And then you can pursue this. That might be sort of a premature move. However, there are people also who are in the beauty industry to begin with, and they either are working in a salon and they're about ready to jump to the next level already, or they have their own studio and they're just adding this service. So, so there's a lot of different scenarios there. But for someone who's just brand new, I think the first one, like Amanda had mentioned, is a great solution for all the reasons we mentioned. So next, you want to be setting up your branding. So decide on a name that you're going to present yourself as, your company or your business if you're not going to incorporate. Get a logo designed. That's pretty easy. That you just go on Google and find a logo designer. It should be relatively inexpensive. Decide on a color scheme. That's also important too. Believe it or not, you need to have a color scheme because you want having consistent branding. Part of branding, you want even the filter of your photos. You can get down to the level of the filter of your photos to really have a consistent color scheme. If you look at some people who have very, very big followings with their Instagram and they're very good at it, you'll almost see like when you arrive at their Instagram, it almost has a feel to it, a mood to it. And a lot of that has to do with the filters that they use and the color scheme. They're paying very careful attention to the colors that are in their photos and to the filters to be consistent with their branding. Purchase your domain. You want to get your domain. So if it's, Microblading by Amanda, that's the name of the company, or that's the name of the business, microbladingbyamanda.com. Get an email for your brand. And so that might be microbladingbyamanda@gmail.com if you don't want to go the route of a professional email, or it might be info at microbladingbyamanda.com. Okay, so set up your corporation. Speak with your CPA for guidance on the best form of incorporation if you intend to incorporate. Get started with your application and get a tax ID number. Amanda, you want to talk about this at all?
Yeah, it's important to, depending on your revenue, depending on if you have other companies, it's going to be really important to get it set up correctly because it's tough to back file, if you're in the next year not knowing you filed correctly. And, do you want to be an LLC? Do you want to be, how do you want to start out your business? I definitely went LLC starting out, and then as my revenue started increasing, I filed I incorporated, but you need to understand not only what it is, but why that is the best option for this. And I incorporated, but you need to understand not only what it is, but why that is the best option for you and your business.
Yes. And so, all right, so that's pretty important. And these are the basic pillars of a microblading online presence: a Facebook business page, Instagram business account, a Yelp page, a Google listing, and a website. So get started. Amanda, any thoughts about these?
Yeah, get it done and do it very professionally. Add great photos, do it first class. Look at other successful artists in your area and see how they have theirs set up.
Yes, that's a good idea, is to look at other artists who are successful and model understand what their model is. What are the aspects of what they're doing that are really, that stand out, that make them exceptional, and try to replicate that to whatever extent you can. Okay, so begin announcing your new career direction. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but now you're sort of getting into a different level of it, right? Because now you're really practicing, and you might be working on models at this point. So you want to let everybody know about your new career direction, make everyone aware of your new services. Amanda, any thoughts on this, or this just sort of carries over from what we talked about before?
Yeah, it kind of carries over, but just don't be afraid to talk about it and get it out there. If you're getting your hair done, if you're getting waxing done yourself and you're at a salon, let them know that you're doing it now. And maybe even if you have business cards at that time, drop them off with them, because like my hairstylist, for example, the one that's booked out a million years in advance, she has referred clients to me over time because she knows I do microblading. And I told her about the quality of education, kind of stuff we talked about earlier. And that has been a great referral source for me long term.
Yes. So when we're talking about letting everyone know about your new career, especially referral sources, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Okay. So here's a few miscellaneous important reminders to finish up this section 4, which is the first 3 months after taking your meet with your accountability partner regularly. Make sure that you're completing your weekly, monthly goals. Engage in the microblading community online. And then last, I think this is last, or it's close to last, create a budget. This is one of Amanda's favorite subjects. So let's create a budget, okay? And what we mean here is you don't have to you don't have to be super technical about it, but at the very least, set a basic budget for your business, which means that you're going to estimate the cost of the various things that you're going to need to invest in, right? Part of that comes from that list previously that we talked about that you're going to need to put together for what you need in order to set up your location. You also have to consider how much the rent is going to be. So you want to have several months worth of rent on hand. There's going to be, you need to have supplies in order to perform the procedure. There's going to be application fees for licensing. You have to pay for, incorporating. These are miscellaneous things that you need. So add up all those things that you know that for sure that you're going to have to spend money on. Then I'd suggest you add an extra 25% on top for all the things that you didn't think about. And then whatever that is, there's your budget. And that way, when you have expenses that come up, it's not like a surprise, like, oh, man, I got to spend $250 on this. Oh, I don't know if I should do that. No, you should be doing that because you thought about it ahead of time and you created a budget and you anticipated approximately how much this particular item should cost, and it's part of your budget, right? And so if your budget is $10,000, if it's $5,000, if it's $20,000, whatever it is, just keep in mind you're building a new career, right? You're building a career, and this career should be very lucrative. Now, some people are going to have extraordinary success and build a multiple six-figure business, and some people may not. Some people might only make $50,000 a year or $100,000 a year? Even if you made $75,000 a year doing this, would it be worth investing $10,000 to set yourself up with that business that makes you $75,000 a year going forward? Of course it would, right? And so when you know you have the budget and you've accounted for it and it's on your budget, you don't have to be afraid to make that expenditure because it's part of your plan already. But what I would suggest to you is prepare for how much you're going to make sure that that liquidity, that money is there for you in, whatever form, however you're going to get that money. You need to make sure that it's there because you wouldn't want to go. Suggest to you is prepare for how much you're going to need to spend. So make sure that that liquidity, that money is there for you in, whatever. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I think a lot, or I'd say the majority of people coming into this industry, outside of people that were, or even in the salon, they were employees. They haven't owned a business before. So yeah,
Okay.
if people are employees, they don't necessarily understand business, but business is a separate mindset. And so talking about budgeting, about cost, about return on investment, I mean, you're not just winging it and going and hoping and it works. You need to have measured expectations, that measured budgeting process. This is very, very important if you're new to the business industry and this is your first time owning a company.
Yes. Very, very important. Create a budget. You don't have to get crazy about it, but at least have a basic budget. Okay, so this is the last section. It's the month.